My latest adventure module has officially entered the gauntlet, duking it out with over 300 fierce competitors. Now, it's up to the masses to select a champion, but as I size up the competition, I'm starting to second guess everything. Does my module even stand a chance? What did I even send into battle? A mighty, unyielding Tarrasque, or a pathetic, squishy Flumph? Today, we're gonna find out. Hey friend, my name's Richie, and I'm a post-mortem pontificator. Submissions to the 2026 Appendix-N Game Jam has just ended, and I was able to squeeze in my entry just before the deadline. I'm honestly not quite sure how well reviewed my submission will be this year. I will attempt a prediction, but first, let's figure out how my entry came into existence. The Appendix-N was a list of books and authors that helped shape and influence Dungeons & Dragons. These books fall into the category of pulp fantasy. Think Conan the Barbarian or H.P. Lovecraft. This game jam pays homage to these books. Participants had a month to submit a tabletop role-playing game module. You could design the module for any system. Your entry had to be limited to just 4 A5 pages. An A5 page is like half a sheet of paper, so you can imagine your total design space is one full sheet of paper, front and back. Everyone who entered the game jam gets the opportunity to rate the modules and select a community winner. Then a panel of judges determines the winner for each category and an overall winner. The 4 categories are writing, the strength of the prose, visual design, the art and layout of the module, gameability, the module's ease of use, and theme. Does it contain retro vibes? Oh, and the participants were randomly assigned a title for their adventure module. And I was assigned Not for All the Gold in Hell. So I began to brainstorm. The first idea that came to me was the devil and Faustian bargains. I quickly thought of an auction where players could bid using stuff more valuable than gold, things like years off their life or a finger or limb. I couldn't shake this idea and I just started to plot out what I would need to make this thing work. The module would need a cover, which would provide an introduction to the module, a list of things you could bid on at the auction, a list of things you could use as payment in lieu of gold, a cast of strange non-player characters that would also be bidding on items. I would need space to describe the venue, and I would need stuff to happen at the auction, like a random encounter table. This worked out to be exactly 6 components, which I figured would probably take up equal amounts of space. So designing a 6-panel brochure-style module would organize the content in a way that would make sense. The first section I worked on was the NPCs. Now, when it comes to creating characters for my games, I definitely have a type. I like my characters to be weird. It may come across as exceedingly silly, but that's not my intention. I do think most NPCs should ooze as much personality as possible, because they need to be memorable. This isn't going to work in a super serious, simulationist type of game, but for a pulp adventure, it's encouraged to go weird. Every auction needs a charismatic host, so meet Crinkle Fox, a dapper, stitched-up doll inspired by my dog's favorite chew toy. He serves as the master of ceremonies for the infernal event. I know it's a pretty common trope. I just love to juxtapose something innocent and whimsical with something fucked up. Crinkle Fox is also inspired by this character called Pocket Cat from this video game Fear and Hunger, a super dark and messed up RPG that's not for the faint of heart. I made sure to include a couple of things in Crinkle Fox's description that are totally by design. First, he is a vessel for the devil himself. If players were to come to this auction and are greeted by Mephistopheles, the powerful archdevil would likely deter the players from getting into any shenanigans. I also included a part about him being immortal and having a respawn timer. I was thinking if the players approach this like a heist, figuring out how to kill or distract Crinkle Fox would become kinda like a puzzle. As far as the other non-player characters go, I wanted to create a variety of weird people to interact with, but with limited space there's only so much you can do. So each NPC would only get a 2-line description. In those 2 lines, I tried my best to fit in a physical description and a motivation or personality trait. I also tried to be very intentional when naming the NPCs, making sure their names conjure a mental image so I could describe less. The last one on the list, the nameless aspirant, was also designed to be a placeholder. I imagined game masters would run this as part of a larger campaign. I wanted to stand in for an existing rival to the party that could be inserted into the module. I also made sure to include the buying power of each character. I was not explicit on what this actually means. I feel like I wanted to provide the game master with a bit of guidance on how much these characters are willing to spend, how far to push their bid if there is a bidding war. These NPCs also influenced how I designed the auction items items, which I'll get to in a little bit. But first, the players would need a way to bid on these items. I was thinking the players would declare what they're willing to offer when bidding. In actual play, it would be pretty hard for the game master to make a ruling on the fly. Like, are all of your teeth and fingernails more valuable than a year off of your life? From there, I got the idea of infernal coins and the money changer. I based the money changer off of the weird tentacle monster who you sell scrap to in the video game Lethal Company, and mechanically players should be empowered to offer anything for infernal coins. But to spark the players' creativity, I wanted to provide some guidance. I felt like a menu of options could be really helpful. I also wanted to include a mechanical effect for these trades. Since this is designed to be a system agnostic game, it's really up to the game master to make a ruling. Hopefully there's enough here to guide the GM. I wouldn't want this list to stop the players from being creative and trying to haggle, so I included this clause at the end. There are also other benefits in using infernal coins as currency. The money changer is not the only way to acquire them, as you'll see in a sec, but what can the players actually buy with their ill-gotten gains? Well, all these devilish auction items, of course. I tried to make them interesting and powerful. They had to be worth the infernal coin investment. One issue that I thought may arise is how the hell do players come and go from this place? While I don't explicitly mention anything in the module, I figured I would need an item that gives the players a way to leave. So I created the ferryman's ticket. This item establishes a way to escape hell, but the problem is the players and game masters may now believe that this is the only way to leave, especially because there's no other way suggested in the module. A good GM would be open to creative ideas from the players, but by having a ticket be an auction item and the first item up for bid, if the players don't immediately identify its usefulness, an NPC may buy it. This actually creates an interesting scenario when they have to try to acquire the ticket from the NPC. Or, I don't know, they could try to steal the ferryman's boat or something. With the items I had a bit more space, which gave me the ability to be a bit more conversational and include some humor. Because it's system agnostic, I can just suggest what the item does and leave it to the game master to make a ruling. Hopefully people pick up on this because it's kind of subtle, but I tried to connect each NPC with a specific item. Now, I didn't specifically write the wax bride will aggressively bid for a date with the devil, but if you read her description, it makes sense that she would. I do like to include these type of connections in my adventures. It is not crucial that the bride bids on that exact item. It can be rewarding for the GM and players to make that connection on their own, and it leaves the opportunity for them to come up with even better ideas for the narrative. Oh, and the final item up for bid is a wish. I feel like this module is going to get used when the players are looking for a specific thing, and a wish is just a great placeholder to provide the players what they're looking for. I realized pretty quickly that I wouldn't have space for a map, but I needed to include a description about the location. If the players wanted to rob the place, I had to include a bit of information about where the goods are and how to get them. Though I feel to make this into a proper heist, the game master would have to put in a bit of work. I needed to fill the seats, so I included a stat block for some thralls. Depraved husks that contain the souls that were sold to the money changer. The thralls provide another element for players to interact with, and they can be used in some creative ways. The collector was inspired by a Reddit post I saw years ago. Something like you get X number of dollars, but a deadly snail constantly chases you, and if it ever touches you, you die. It seemed like a fun consequence that isn't too scary, but could be extremely deadly if not taken seriously. And lastly, I included a random events table. Adding a more elaborate scenario or a timeline of events could have been an option, but with such little space left, I felt that random events was a better solution. And this was the last section that I wrote, but actually the section that I'm most proud of. I tried really hard to make the events force a reaction from the players. Often I see designers, myself included, write encounters like this: a velociraptor chases 1d6 terrified goblins. It's easy for players to be like, okay, we just do nothing and watch it play out. So I tried my best to write the encounters to put the ball in the player's court and force them to act. I also made sure that some of these encounters would add more infernal coins to the economy. Hopefully this will add even more incentive for the players to be proactive. So prediction time. Where do I think this will rank? Well, it's going to be a couple months until the judges pick a winner, and to be fair, I haven't done a deep dive into the other entries. I've just taken a peek at some of the modules, and oh boy, the tabletop RPG community really brought it for this jam. I am way less confident now that my module is going to score well. It's very unlikely that I'll be selected as the community or overall winner, but the judges do pick a winner from each category, so let's just take another look at them. Visual design, the art and layout of the module. How striking are the visuals? Does the art represent the text? Is the information findable on the page? Are elements where you expect them to be? Do the color or contrast heighten the work? Okay, let's be real. I am no artist. I'm pretty happy with the doodles I was able to produce, but there is no way I'm in the same league as some of these other submissions. I think my graphic design skills and layout are like serviceable, probably above average, but some of these people, my god, they're just amazing. Like, holy hell, there are some truly beautiful and inspiring submissions. Real works of art. Bravo community, y'all are super talented. Theme, the retro vibes. If this module were a book, would you expect to find it on the original Appendix-N list? How faithful are its ideas to the weird fiction and science fantasy genres? Does it use elements from those old stories? How does it adapt them for the needs of a modern audience? This category can be pretty subjective. I think I did pretty well in capturing the vibes of the assigned title. Pulp fantasy can mean different things to different people. I feel like my characters are pretty weird and over the top. The concept is offbeat enough compared to a standard adventure, but I'm lacking that super offbeat science fantasy element. Maybe I should have included a time-traveling robot NPC trying to buy a soul. If the judges consider the visual aesthetic, I don't think I captured the pulp look as much as others have. I really didn't want to lean into super distressed visuals, but I kind of feel like I had to for the sake of this jam, so you can still see some elements. Gameability, the module's ease of use. Does this seem easy to run? Are the concepts accessible? Would this require additional materials to work? How much prep time would this module require? Do the themes above come together in a helpful way? I think I did a pretty good job here considering the limitations of space. I like to prioritize usability, and I did my best to try to make this as easy to use as possible. Now, because it's system agnostic, the GM would have to prep some stuff to fit into their game specifically. I do feel like I gave them all the tools that they need, and I packed as much value as I could within these 2 pages. I usually like to add more guidance for the game master on how to use the module, but when space is at a premium, it's hard to include. I do see this more of a toolkit. I don't know if this falls into gameability, but one thing I really like about this module is how the GM can introduce it. It's a common occurrence in games that a player will go out and seek a devil's bargain, and having a module like this as a reaction to the player's actions provides the module with an accessible hook that can easily be inserted into an existing game, as opposed to an adventure where you really have to plant the seeds to get your players hooked into the premise. Either way, I do believe that this module can be a useful tool in the Game Master's toolbox. Writing, the strength of the prose. What kind of ideas are present in the writing? Do they fire your imagination? How well is this information conveyed? Is the module telling you everything it needs to? Is the text meandering or to the point? I'm obviously a bit biased here, but I do like my style of writing. I try to evoke as much info as possible in a few short sentences. My intention is to fire up the imagination, rather than being super explicit. I think it's pretty to the point, easy to follow, and fun to read. I do try to be intentional with it. I imply a lot of things without directly connecting them, and it's up to the reader to connect the dots. Some people may not like this style, but I think it allows the reader to make connections that I didn't plan for, to make it their own. So yeah, overall, I'm pleased with my submission, but the competition is fierce. There are some excellent entries out there, and honestly, if I were to place in the top 10%, I'd be happy. But I'm mostly happy to release something to the world. Competing in these jams is such a rewarding creative outlet, and just submitting something is an accomplishment in itself. And to all my fellow jammers out there who are able to submit a module, congrats. You made something awesome and put your work out there for the world to see, and that's no easy task, so be proud of what you did. I've included a link down below to check out all the submissions, and if you have any interest in tabletop RPG design, or if you're a game master, there are a ton of excellent and mostly free modules to be downloaded. Just having more content to play and to draw inspiration from is an awesome thing, and you can download them right now. And please, feel free to download my module, Not for All the Gold in Hell. It's free right now, but I think that might change once the judging concludes in a couple months. Read it, play it, let me know what you think. And hey, if you want more free adventure modules, or you just like learning about tabletop RPG adventure design in general, subscribe so you don't miss out. And you can always check out this video next.